Welcome to Behind the Tools. Here's Tradify CEO and your host, Michael Steckler.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Behind the Tools. Looking forward to a great conversation today with another Tyler. I think our second Tyler actually we've had on the show. So you will be the second. You can see he's actually on a job right now as we speak. So Andrew Lewis from Ezy Tiling, and Andrew's based in Victoria in Australia. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me. That's very exciting.
No, it's great to have you on board. And you're currently on a job at the moment?
Yeah, currently on a job at the moment. Got the plumber on site, so I've got a bit of time to do this podcast. And so I'll wait for him to be done, then I can get back into tiling.
Fantastic. And do you want to maybe give us a really quick high level of your business and how you got into the trades?
Oh, I got into the trade when I was in year 12. I was offered a apprenticeship. Got into it from there. Had a choice of either joining the Navy by my dad and grandfather or do the trade. And my grandfather told me, look, do the apprenticeship, get your certificate, then do whatever you like. You want to join the Navy, but you've got something to fall back on. So I took my grandfather's advice, did the apprenticeship, and then, just sort of got out on my own.
Fantastic. And the company, do you want to give us a sense of the company size and what you do, how you operate? Basically,
it's just myself, sole trader.
Just you, yeah.
Just me. The odd chance I get a subcontractor every now and then when the job's too big. But I've got a list of trades, good tilers out there that I can sort of call upon if need be, and they can call upon me if they require an extra pair of hands. But mostly It's just bathroom renovations and that type of thing. So keep it small, keep it simple, and just do the best job I can.
And have you ever thought about expanding? Has that ever been on the sort of agenda for you?
It has been an idea to maybe get an apprentice down the track, but it's sort of a fear to make sure that I've got enough work on board to have someone else. Because, of course, that's the risk you have is as a sole trader, if there's no work, bad luck. You're sitting at home, but you don't have someone else to keep going. And that's just sort of the risk of this type of job is it's job by job. So you got to outlay that money unless you work for volume builders where you know it's guaranteed money.
Yeah.
So it's apprenticeship would be nice. Get a young apprentice on board and teach them exactly what I've been taught. You know, send the skills because I don't think the skills are getting out there anymore.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I mean, it's been a common theme that we've had on the podcast and from people I speak to in the trades, which is there is this sort of gap in knowledge and skill set and lack of people coming through to fill that.
That's correct.
And the other kind of trend that's been interesting is this kind of aging out of older tradespeople that are retiring and just coming out of the industry, and you sort of get this brain drain of talent and skills. And apprenticeships feels like a really good way to get people into the system. Do you think there's more that needs to be done there to make that?
Oh, look, the tough thing is when I was an apprentice, we learnt a lot of skills. We knew how to screed. We knew how to waterproof. We knew how silicon. You know, all these trades are now dividing up into smaller individual parts, and there's no one at fault anymore. Like if a bathroom fails, there's 4 people you got to talk to with what went wrong with the bathroom. So with me, because I'm the old school way, it's all me. Like I do the screed, I do the waterproof, I do the silicon. I'm qualified in all of it. So I think people find a peace of mind with me, but as new apprentices come on board, they're only learning a specific part of that job.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where you think there's more subcontractors being used, or companies just have to be bigger because they've got more people doing different distinct skill
Correct.
sets?
There's a lot of range. Like silicon now is almost its own trade, but it's a bigger part of it because they're doing outside work and inside work, but it's starting to become its own sort of trade itself.
Yeah. And sort of going back a step, what made you want to go self-employed? So you were an apprentice. When was the moment that you decided you should go out on your own?
You know, for me, it was because as soon as I finished my my certificate, so year 4, the boss, there was some issues with money paying the apprentices and stuff. There was issues there. So that was the sort of point where I thought, right, I'm still living at home. I can go out on my own and give it a crack and see how it goes. I just gave it a good hot go, and a couple of years, it took a couple of years to get it off the ground, like really get my name in there with the older tilers around the area. But once I got my name in there, now I'm not chasing work. It's sort of good word of mouth with all the local tile shops.
Yeah, and how did you? I'm sort of intrigued by that because you've leaned very heavily, I think, in a really good way. If you look at your website on kind of recommendation and reviews, and obviously photography, I think in your line of work, actually in any trade, by the way, I would argue is really really important. Obviously plays a role. What did you do in those first 2 years to kind of get your name out there when you didn't have those existing customers?
Well, that's right. We don't have the social media that we did back then when I started. So I'm 35, so that's 12 years ago. I would have most likely started the business 13 years ago. We didn't have social media. That really did come out. So I think it was basically I was knocking on all the toll shops in the area, just talking, just talk to everyone. And as soon as a job comes up, bang, do the job. Even if you've underpriced yourself and you were scared of it, just do the job, do the commitment, and then people go, it's then the word of mouth. That's the old school word of mouth. Whereas now social media now is a completely different story. That's word of mouth now. Like people want to hear recommendations. As soon as someone posts, oh, I had this lovely tiler come and do my job. He was very respectful. He did a clean job. That's word of mouth for me now. Whereas the old days was, oh, I had this young bloke and they're talking at the pub or, whatever. And that's how the word of mouth used to be back in the days.
Yeah. And you talked about a sort of an important point about pricing work. Do you think that's I've heard that a lot from people that when you're starting out, you tend to take some of the jobs that obviously as you grow and get your own customer base, you wouldn't, now take. How did you navigate that?
I think for me, it was a learning curve because as soon as I finished my apprenticeship, I didn't know pricing. I had no idea. I'm like, well, look, I'm talking to other tilers, especially the apprentices that left at the same time I did. We were just guessing what we were doing. We'd hear from the tile shops what the rough rate would be. But as well, like when you first start, you want the jobs, you want to get in. So you go, right, I want this, a cracked tile, and you only do it for like $50. But that little job could lead into a big job. So you just got to, you go, right, it's taken more time than I thought. I lose money, but I might get that word of mouth. He might talk to his family. Next minute, there's a bathroom involved. So you just got to be that type of loyalty to customers so that in the end result, you get more customers coming to you.
And what do you think I've sort of heard about electricians. I spoke to an electrician a while back in the UK who sort of pounded the pavements and went to, real estate agents and dropped in leaflets and spoke to them much in the same way to get that kind of recurring work. What was your, dare I say it, you used the word, but what was your pitch? What was your spiel that you sort of used when you went into those tile shops? Were you just getting to know them?
I'm most probably lucky in my area. Like I was nervous when I first knocked on the door to tile shops and stuff. Like I had a tile shop where my boss used to go and they knew who I was. And so that was a small thing, but to get the word out in the area, so the Mornington Peninsula area. So I went to there's a small local shop in Hastings. It's a small town. I walked in and I was nervous as hell because I knew they had an old school tile that I knew. But I said, look, I'm a young bloke, I'm after work. And I think because I talk nicely, talk neatly, they were hesitant to start with. They then passed my number on to one person. That person actually went back to him and said, that young bloke, he did a really nice job for us. We're really happy. Next minute, they're sending my number to everyone. So it's that sort of first reaction you get with the tile shops. It's so important. It's a very hard. It's almost you just got to get out of your shell.
I do think it's a tough one for some people, right? You like you say, getting out of your shell. That whole notion of selling your business and selling yourself is quite hard.
Correct,
some people are very, very, very good tradespeople, very good at the work they do, but maybe don't want to go and knock on a door and have that conversation. But it's definitely worth. It sounds like it's definitely worth the investment. I've not met a tradesperson that hasn't said it wasn't worth the investment.
That's right. It's a nervous start.
It leads to that one customer, right? And then goes back to the tile shop and says, "Oh yeah, it was great," and then they just open the book. So it's a really, really powerful vehicle.
That's correct. Like I deal with a lot of real estates doing fix-ups and stuff for rental properties. One real estate I did a job for, and next minute they're like, mate, that bathroom's perfect. You priced it correctly. I'm happy with the pricing that I did myself, so I'm not out of pocket. Next minute, that real estate talks to the next real estate, talks to the other real estate. Now I've got the whole group of real estates, and they're all, can you do our jobs? Because you're reasonably priced, you're not overpricing, and you do the fair thing for us. If you do the fair thing by the customers, they just keep coming back. And as long as you're not losing money, it's the right thing to do.
And how did you get to the right? So from a pricing perspective, at what moment did you sort of figure that out and decide to price in the way you thought was more appropriate to what you did initially?
Oh, look, the thing is with tiling, you can quote 3 ways. There's 3 ways to quote. You can quote by the meter, by the job, or by time. There's the 3 ways we can quote. So it's always subjective to each job. So you go to a job and someone says, oh, I want 1 tile change. Well, you're like, well, I'll price it accordingly to maybe what the time would take for that. You know, if it takes me an hour, it takes me 2 hours, I'll charge by time. If I get a big 100 square meter floor, the fairest thing is quote by the meter. And then everyone's on board, the customer's on board with they know the end result, bang, I pay Andrew to Ezy Tiling this much money once he's finished the project. Whereas time, I don't like to do time, but I do it just say, right, you want a little splashback done, the set price for that size splashback is this much. And then the customer is comfortable. Like the customer doesn't want to hear at the end result, oh, it's just blown out $200-300, because where have they got the money for that? So if they know straight off the bat, that's the price, they're feeling comfortable.
And what's the biggest? Have you ever had any challenges? How have you managed those challenges with customers? Often around price or other areas. How do you pick the right customer nowadays?
Oh, I think that's a tough one, because you kind of feel the vibe. Like as long as I've done it, you sort of pick a vibe if they're genuine and they know. Like social media now does help, because they get to see what type of work I can do. So that's the end result that they will get. They want their bathroom done. Here's a photo. You can have something very similar to this that I can give you. Whereas the run-of-the-mill people that aren't putting photos on social media or not giving them any photography, they don't know what they're getting out of them. So that's the sort of price point that I can sort of get.
Yeah, cool. And what has been the biggest challenge? I mean, you've been in business now for 12 years or so. What would you say was the hardest thing?
I think it's just chasing money. Like sometimes you drop the invoice, like you make the customer as happy as you can. But sometimes there are some that are just really nasty, just like they nitpick, and you're like, everything's handmade. So tiling is totally handmade. It's a one-off project. Sometimes you get tiles that are inferior and you shouldn't be tiling it. You tile it anyway, and then you get an unhappy customer. So I reckon less than the fingers on one hand I've had issues with. But look, 90% of the time, everyone's great. Every person's great at paying, but you always get those once in a blue moon jobs that you shouldn't have touched.
Is there any with hindsight that you look at that you think would have helped you not take those jobs?
Oh, I don't think it's that. I think it's more have everything in writing. If a customer changes their mind and says, oh, I want to use this tile instead, and you're like, okay, well, that's going to cost a bit more. Don't do it verbally. Do it on a bit of paper. Have that backup, because next minute they've come out with like you're laying a cheap 400 by 400 ceramic tile. Next minute they go, oh, we want these marble tessellated weird tiles. And you go, okay, well, the price has gone up. But then at the end of the job, they're like, no, we're just paying your normal quote that you sent us.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's not fair on me, because I spent, an extra day on the project. But if you got everything in writing, you've got that backup. So that's mostly the only important thing is if there's any big changes that might cost you an extra day, have it in writing, let them sign it. Everyone's on the same page. Then you got something to fall back on.
Yeah, 100%. I think that seems to be the common. Even the photography these days, I think, makes a big difference. To I've often heard stories of, in your world, someone breaks a tile or there's a crack, customer did it.
Yes, that's right. My phone is filled with photos of all my tiling, more than my missus or my dogs. So it's all about tiling in my phone. It's really bad.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's a good proof point. I want to go back a step, because one of the things we haven't talked about is your social media presence. I'd love to hear the sort of story about how that came about. Do you want to maybe share what happened? You've got a pretty big following on Instagram.
Well, there's a couple of things. So I was talking to a rep from DTA, and this is the first time I've heard of social media. that rep was going to talk to a few tilers saying, oh, we want to approach these tilers and, show them some products and stuff. I'm like, well, I'll join social media. I'll give it a crack. He's like, nah, you won't do well off it. Anyway, started it, slowly put photos on there, videos and stuff. And then one of the videos went viral. One of these videos was of a precise wedge on a tile, and it just blossomed. It got 24 million views. I don't know how many likes. It went nuts. I got another
24 million.
24 million. Like, you think about it, the population of Australia is 25 million. So it's a big amount of views. I got like 12,000 followers. It's dipped a bit because, of course, the timing of it, people follow me and then they drop off, which is natural. It's like a roller coaster, Instagram. So that just blossomed, and now I'm still posting those same videos, but it was just luck of the draw that one reel went really well, and that's how the social media has gone since. I enjoy it. I enjoy showing photos, getting those good comments, and just people appreciating the jobs that we do, just to see. And plus, for me as well, it's to say to the customer, hey, I've got an Instagram page. I'm not scared to show my product. Here's my Instagram page. You can check out how I waterproof, how I screed. Here's some of the tiling that I do. If you want something different, at least this is sort of a start to know what I can give you.
Yeah, that was my next observation or question was, does it help? You've got your website, which does a good job, but does Instagram do a lot of people go there first and look what you've done?
I have recently, I think ever since that viral video, it has, I think it's because of location. There's something with location as well when you tag your products in it, or when you're tiling saying, I've been working in Frankston. Next minute, I've got a couple of phone calls from people from Frankston saying, hey, I've seen your page because I've seen it in the Explore page. I want you to do my tiling. And then you go and quote, and you quote it accordingly. And then I say to them, look, go get some other quotes. And they're like, no. We've seen your work. We've seen how clean it is. We want you to do it. So it's a big thing on my shoulders to have to present a good job for people.
I think it's really interesting that I think a lot of people listening often get confused by this social media stuff, and as much as you don't have to have the 24 million views to be successful on social. I think it's more, as you say, it's a catalogue. It's just a new way of having a catalogue of your work.
Exactly. It is a catalogue of your work.
Yeah. Tagged in your location, because, and I agree with you. I think if someone's got, I always compare it to, booking a hotel or an Airbnb, and you might have the most amazing hotel, terrible photos of it. So take one look at the pictures and go, well, it doesn't look very nice. I'm not going to go there. It's just you fall at the first hurdle. So you might have the best trades company that does great work, but again, they haven't got pictures, or the pictures aren't great. It makes a huge difference. And nowadays, there's no excuse not to be able to just take half decent pictures with a smartphone.
Exactly. If you've got that pride in work and you want to show it off, I don't see why you don't use social media. And plus, it's a peace of mind for the customers. They can see. I keep bringing this up. They can see what I can present them, or what they can have with the right job. So where, I think some other places like these trade companies that get you the quotes, I don't think is such a good thing. Like the customer goes to these certain websites, they get the 3 quotes from people. You don't know who you're getting.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's the risk. Whereas at least with the blokes I know, the other tilers in our sort of region, we're doing the social media. People then can see, right, these guys are good at what they do. They're not scared to show off their work. They know it's to Australian standards. We want them to do our job, and that's peace of mind for people.
And are you mainly word of mouth then entirely? Do you think in terms of how you drive your new business these days?
How do you mean?
Well, in terms of new business that you get, work that you get, how's that generated? Is that mainly word of mouth now, or?
At the moment, I've got one boutique builder down at Summers, so I do all his work. So he does 4 or 5 houses a year, and he's very good to work for. He doesn't question the quotes or anything like that. He just knows he'll get what job I can give him, and the rest of the stuff is normally word of mouth or return customers. So customers go, right, Andrew, you've been out for 30 years now. We've moved house, in the last 7 years. We want you to come back and we're happy with what you've done for us. Like, yes, the prices have gone up a bit, but I think people expect that too, because it's an expensive trade. There's a lot involved in tiling than just tiling. It's not simply slap it on the wall, hope for the best. There's a lot of prep, to get the right job done.
I'd like to dig into that a bit because it's a really important point. And I've had other trades companies say this, which is, it's a lot cheaper to just keep retaining your current customers and obviously trying to get new ones. Is there anything you do intentionally with your people that have used you historically in terms of keeping in touch, or they just come back around?
No, I think, maybe it's just myself. Like, I've got that charisma that they remember who the tiler was, but as well, in the area that I'm in, it's a very small area. So it's very easy to keep that customer base, especially with the local tile shops. They're still very small. They're all talk to each other, so they know, right, here's Andy. Like, they have a trade sheet and they go, right. Here's 3 or 4 tilers. Go for this bloke, go for this bloke, go for this bloke. If you can get one of those 3 guys of this area, bang, they will do a good job for you. So it's that word of mouth in this area too. So there's a lot of ways you can get your word of mouth going. It's just getting the start.
Right. Yeah, cool. And there'll be people listening who might be working for someone else, think about going out on their own. Any sort of top 3 tips or any tips you've got that you would say if you're starting your own business that you would have done that you did that worked, or stuff you would have done differently?
Look, the main thing that really worked for me, like, this is of course before social media, is just talk to your tile shops or talk to any shops. Go in, even real estates. Go, hey, I'm a tiler, I can do this, or any other trades, electricians or something. Don't be scared of talking, because if you don't get that dialogue across, they're not going to get you. So it's best to put yourself out there for the start. Yes, you'd be nervous as anything, you're scared as hell, but you got to put yourself out there. If not, they're not going to call you up. They're not going to go through the yellow pages or True Local to find you. They're going to go with the bloke they meet, they can talk with and know the person. So if you rock up and say, hey, I want to give it a go, they might just put you on the list for the next job that might be available, and then you might be quoting that. If you're reasonably priced versus the other bloke that's been ripping them off for a long time, they might be like, hang on a sec, we might use this guy. And then you can make sure your prices are current. Whereas the other bloke's been comfortable for how many years, crept his price up, and then they're looking at it going, this is weird. So you got to be quite competitive to start with, for sure. Yeah.
Great. And then, what was the biggest, aside from that, right now, the industry in terms of suppliers and everything else, have you had any impact in where you are?
Look, I do a bit of timber work as well. So there is a bit of a timber shortage over here in Australia. I don't know what it's like over there. At the moment, I think we've been lucky so far, but you just don't know what the future will hold. So it's mainly timber at the moment, I've heard, especially from chippies I know and stuff like that. But as well, it's maybe some of the products that have to come from China and stuff. It's just some items you might have to choose the second grade stuff, not the grade that you wanted. You might have to go back to a different brand or something that's already stocked in Australia.
And is that changing how you invoice customers? Have you got longer lead times on some things? Is that becoming a dialogue, or how do you manage that?
No, I'm pretty, because I work for myself, I can really work out my timeline on a job. So say a bathroom reno, rip out, replace, it'd be like a 2-week turnaround, something comfortably like that. Like this current job, they don't have the stone bench tops because they're supplying their own stone bench tops. So it's blown out another 2-3 half days. So I've got to now work that in with my next job so that it tees up quite nicely. But, it does happen. I think the stonemason industry down here, they're under the pump. I think that's what you bringing up before, issues with products. It might not be issues with products. It's issues getting the trades.
Yes.
I don't think it's got anything to do with products. It's just getting those tradies on the ground to do the stuff. So these stonemasons, they've had issues with COVID. Then maybe there's issues getting a mason to actually do the project, because they're mostly way behind since lockdown. Because in Victoria especially, we were locked down for quite a long period of time. So we couldn't do these private jobs. We had to do unoccupied jobs. So this job in particular was meant to be booked in November, but we were still in lockdown. And now I'm only starting it now.
Yeah.
So I said, look, there is a backlog, but if everyone's happy to wait, everyone's stuck in their queue, no one jumps the gun, no one creeps in, everyone's still locked in place. So I've got this job and one more, and then I've cleared the lockdown backlog.
Cool, great. And then so one of my last questions is, you've been in the business a long time, you started as an apprentice. If there was an apprentice listening, thinking about, do I go into the Navy, or do I go into something else, or do I become a trade? What would be any words of wisdom for someone thinking about the trades, about why they should get into the trades?
My grandfather told me the best advice, and I did follow it, because he told me square on, because I had the choice of Navy or the apprenticeship. He's like, get your ticket. Get that ticket. Once you've got that ticket, you've got something to fall back on, and then you can do whatever you like. So if you've been offered an apprenticeship, especially now, it's hard to get an apprenticeship. So it's most likely best if you can go for a trade that you feel would be your sort of style. Like, I like tiling because it's inside. That's simple enough. I don't like carrying heavy timber. I don't like getting onto roofs. So I chose tiling for that reason, was because it's inside, it's clean, and you get to see your work. So I think it depends on what type of trade you can get, what kind of apprenticeship is offered to you, and just grab it. I think it's a good role to start with, especially out of school. Grab that apprenticeship, get that ticket, then you can do whatever you like. But you've got something to always fall back upon, and that trade certificate can be used anywhere in Australia. So you can use those skills to say, oh, look, I feel like going to Queensland. I'll become a plumber up in Queensland. So you've got that ticket to go with you everywhere, whereas a lot of other jobs are getting too specific, whereas our trade can be quite vast. Yeah,
100%. Great. Okay, I'm going to finish on a few other questions. I did have one interesting question, actually, just around tiling itself. Have you seen a big shift? Is there things happening in the industry that you're excited about that are changing?
Oh, we're seeing a lot more tools, a lot more. Look, a lot of it's tools, a lot of it's the methods of installation. Like waterproofing now is starting to lean towards a solid, dry waterproofing instead of the wet membrane waterproofing. So that speeds up time, which is great in our winter. Products are getting better and better and faster and faster. Soon it'll be like one glue for everything. It's just getting very good, very nice products out there to make our jobs easier. Even grout has changed so much. They're not as cementatious. They're now becoming more polymer, which means the customer gets a more uniform color. And if they drop water, it doesn't stain, doesn't do anything. So there's products, I'm sure, in the next coming years, it's just revolutionized. So I think it's more materials and tools that are coming on the market to make our jobs easier.
Cool. Great. Right. We're going to finish on the rapid fire questions, which was sort of changed as we get into 2022 and 2022. Yeah. It feels still quite new. You sort of talked about why you picked tiling. If you hadn't picked tiling, what trade would you have picked?
Oh, I reckon it'd have to be some kind of electrical, I think. I think that's still clean, tidy. You don't have to clean up after yourself. You don't even know what a broom is. So you just do I think it's just a clean job. I don't know how I'll go getting into a roof to run cables, but I'm sure I'd be a lot more fitter.
Now you're in your work vehicle right now.
Yes, my office. Yes.
Yeah. If money was no object, which work vehicle would you pick?
I don't know. I've seen a lot of these new four-wheel drives. I think they're Ssangyong or something like that. A dual cab. They're looking nice and chunky. But of course, you got the Ford Raptors. They're coming up with some amazing utes at the moment. But unfortunately, being a van, I'd have to go something like a Ford Transit. Vans are just convenient.
Yeah. For your stuff in the tiles. Yeah, great.
Yep.
And then, you talked about the type of work you're doing. What would be your favorite type of tiling job?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Enjoyable tiling. I guess it would be like niche work. I love doing niches. It's just very intricate, very neat. If you do the right job, it looks sexy. It's just sexiness. As well as strip drains. Like I've got one that I'll be posting on Instagram soon of the strip drain that works perfectly 900. So it's just sexy. Even the plumber walked in today gone, Andy, this is brilliant. And I said, that's what I want. That's the feedback of just, he sees the details, but the owners might not see the details. But tradies see by eye. Like if I walk into a pub, I look at all the tiling there and go,
you look at the tiles,
they started over there.
Yeah.
I think every tradie's like, I could have done better than that.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And then, probably, I think I might know the answer to this, but any pet peeves for you on the site?
Oh, well, like this one, just a delay in any trades or anything like that, especially if you're not in control of those trades. It just shits me. Like, yes, the stonemason, they've had issues, but damn it, I want to do my job. And it's not about like hanging around a couple more days. It's like, I want to complete your job, move on to the next one with a clean slate. I don't like to bundle up too many jobs at one go because you can get very confused and very overwhelmed. Yes.
Yeah, overwhelmed by all these juggling plates.
All the small jobs. And then you're like, how can I fit on all these jobs? So it's more job management and that type of thing. Yeah.
And then anyone else you think we should speak to that you come across, either on your journeys on social media or people that you...
Yep. So I've met a bloke, Jacob from Prime Painting. He started out with this same boutique builder as I did. I think we were like a house different. But he started off with him and his mate starting a small painting business together. I don't know their history, but I know they've grown into a big team of two teams that they've got now. That just one does volume and one does the boutique stuff, and that's over only like 2 years. So that's quite an achievement in that range. That he's gone from 2 blokes to now a team of 10. And I'm like, that's amazing. That I like seeing that.
Seeing that sort of growth, yeah.
The other one is like even just talking to like a local tile shop. I love there's a tile shop in Narrow Warren, Tiles Warehouse. I use quite a bit, and a few other blokes around here. But it's sort of how he sells his products, gives us tips, shows us the new products that have come on the market, and is doing all the workshops. So he's like, hey, this glue company wants to do a workshop. Anyone interested? And he pushes our sort of trade into a certain direction.
Right.
So there's a couple of good blokes out there to talk to for sure.
Yeah.
But I think Prime Painting, he's going to be a good bloke, especially hearing from a painter's point of view. I'm sure he's got some pet peeves.
Yeah, of course. I can imagine. I imagine it's very similar in terms of customers that have feedback. Yes.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Cool. Great. Look, Andrew, this is fantastic. Really, really great conversation.
Awesome.
Great to hear about your success and how you've managed to keep that going for all these years, and fantastic on Instagram as well. Really, if anyone, so just out of interest, just to finish, where can people find you? Just in case anyone here wants to see that Instagram post.
Just 2 Ezy Tiling. It's number 2 EZY Tiling. Instagram. I think I'm on the website, of course, and Facebook. The missus won't let me on TikTok yet. Apparently that's the place to go to put all the videos, but the missus says, nah, you're not touching TikTok. You can stay on Instagram. So
there are quite a few trades companies now going on TikTok. Yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah, I've seen it. Actually, there was one guy who messaged me saying, look, I remember your viral video going off. He's got a viral video that got 6 million views. And he's got 14,000 followers now. Like, followers don't mean a lot, but it's still good to have because you got that more bigger audience. And he was just asking me questions like, oh my God, what do I do now? I'm like, well, just keep doing what you do. Like, obviously you've hit the mark and people like it. So just keep doing what you normally do and it'll just keep growing. And you never know, you might get companies to say, hey, can you try our glue and take a photo? That type of thing. I said, and he's asking me for advice, and I'm the one that's like had no advice because I have no one that I can sort of talk to about.
It just happened. It
just happened, and that's how we evolve, and that's how we learn, and that's with the jobs I do now. We learn as we go along, and now I look at my jobs when I was 12 years ago. I'm like, I feel ashamed of myself because I'm better than what I was back then.
Which you'd expect to be, Great. That's really great to hear. And look, and I know you're on a job, so I'll let you get back to it. And I really appreciate you spending the time. So
thank you
thanks,
very
Andrew.
much.
And you're welcome. And thanks for joining. And so for everyone else, as always, if you want to rate, review, give us feedback, we'd appreciate it. And we will speak to you next time. Cheers.
And that brings us to the end of this episode. Behind the Tools is brought to you by Tradify, job management software for your trade business. If you enjoyed the podcast, let us know by leaving a review, and be sure to tell your mates about it. Email behindthetools@tradifyhq.com if you or someone you know would be keen to join the show as a guest.